Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to a power-packed panel discussion titled Manufacturing, the Game Changer for India 2021. And we have some stalwarts from the Indian manufacturing sector, some of the greatest minds, and I can't wait for this session. So without further ado, let me welcome the members of this panel. Vipin Sondhi, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Ashok Leyland Limited. Ravi Chawla, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Gulf Oil Lubricants India. Prashant Doreswamy, Country Head, Continental India and Managing Director, Continental Automotive. Sanjeev Sharma, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, ABB India and South Asia. And Amit Gosen, Managing Director, Cone Elevator India. Amit will be joining us at around 11 a.m. This session will be chaired and moderated by Sridhar Kamath, Partner, Operations Transformation, Deloitte. Sridhar, the virtual floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Evan. And it's a pleasure to be here and a privilege as well to be in the midst of such an esteemed panel. So welcome to all the panel members to this very, very interesting and probably one of the most important topics as we go into this year. And manufacturing, if you will, has been something that has been the focus for this country for a long time now. And there have been multiple times in the past where it was felt that this is the time that India has to leverage its manufacturing might, and it can make the most out of the opportunity that exists out there. And there has been that focus to say, how can we make manufacturing as a significant part of our GDP, much more than what we have today. And to that end, there have been a number of initiatives that have been taken up by the government to try and improve the manufacturing base in the country. What we will do today is to take a quick dive into some of these initiatives and what kind of impact it is having, what can be done more than what is already being done today to grab the opportunity that is available out there. Why has this opportunity come about? The opportunity has simply come about because one, there has been a large amount of dynamics globally, and that has presented an opportunity for all of us to try and look at how we can make this a manufacturing hub for the global, for global, right? And at the same time, because of the kind of disruptions that we have seen in the current pandemic, it has opened up further avenues to say, can we therefore start thinking about manufacturing in India? Can we look at expanding what we have been doing, and so on and so forth? Yeah. So without any further ado, let me quickly jump in, and I'll have this in two parts. One, which is looking more at the outside in, which is to say about the kind of schemes that the government has, ease of doing business, and so on. And then the other part, which is to look at, how can manufacturing organizations themselves leverage some of the new exponential technologies to start looking at competing at the global stage, right? So let me jump in very quickly and ask a very here and now pertinent question, and that's about COVID. And we have had this pandemic now for over a year and a half almost. And it has had a significant impact on manufacturing, whether there have been disruptions in the supply chain, there has been demand volatility, there has been changes in consumer behavior, and all of this has had a significant impact. So just a quick one on what kind of actions have we taken to come out of this crisis, and given whatever opportunities have now presented itself, how do you see the opportunity for manufacturing and Make in India going forward? So probably I'll start with Vipin.
Yeah, thank you, Sridhar. Very pertinent questions. The opening, of course, is that the pandemic has without doubt led to a large-scale disruption in the supply chain and in operations and on the dealer side, as you mentioned. The economy is accelerating and decelerating, to put it like an automobile does. And really, this is the first time in my career that health has been the primary reason for an economic slowdown. Until now, it's always been either the financial crisis, which was in 2007-8, or other crises, or a policy-related issue. But health has this time come to the forefront, and therefore we as a country, as a community, and as corporations need to move this as well. On volatility, it couldn't have been more volatile, but if you look at the commercial vehicle industry, it has endured cyclicity and volatility quite often, and many times actually, 2008, 9, 12, 14. And if you look at the industry volume of commercial vehicles, we've dropped about 60% in the last 2 to 3 years. And this can be extremely, can take motivation away. COVID-19 took it completely away. Supply chain affected by migrant labor, loss of productivity on the back of health and safety of employees. But what did we all do? And we are very, very optimistic. All of us, I think, on this panel are optimistic about the future. Many of us set up emergency response teams to counter the spread. This was even before the lockdown, to ensure that we were communicating with, not only with our employees and their families, we were communicating with the government, we were communicating with dealers, suppliers, customers. Every day, this team met and made sure that the leadership team was responding. Now, as we go forward from the second wave, which has been ferocious, vaccination of employees, vaccination of the community has to be at the very forefront while maintaining the protocol. It is expected that October, November, December is going to be a very sensitive period in the third wave. So we've got to be ready for it. What, again, many of us did, and we did, we've set up a dynamic master production plan, which has been developed and is constantly getting changed based on inputs we are getting from the sales, to ensure that we work in very close tandem with tier 1, tier 2, and even tier 3 vendors. So we've got to be agile. We've got to be able to expand and contract even in a brick and mortar industry, as well as take a 360-degree view on components. Semiconductors, for example, and Sridhar, you must be doing a lot of study on it, is a worldwide crisis because they're all going into 5G. Automobiles worldwide use only 10% of it. What does the automobile industry worldwide and in India do for semiconductors? Our consumer behaviors changing very, very rapidly. Our consumers traditionally asked for kitna deti hai, as you've seen that ad, kilometers per liter, horsepower. It's moved completely to pay per use, pay as you drive, pay how you drive. So we are moving into a completely different technological aspect. So if I might then respond to your second question on Make in India. The automobile industry in India is a huge driver of macroeconomic growth and technological advancement. And there's an ambitious vision for the Indian economy, aspirational goal for the automotive sector under the automotive mission plan of the government of 2026. And within that, the commercial vehicle industry. So I'm going to step away from Make in India, where we can always come back later, to the importance of Create in India. We've got to create technology. Manufacturing will only be as good as the ability to create technology. In our sector, it's about alternative fuels, electric vehicles, hydrogen, CNG. It's about material technology, which is lightweighting and high horsepower to weight ratio. It's about connected and autonomous vehicles, and about safety and comfort, airbags, etc. And connecting all of this is the entire digital ambition that we, all of us, have to have on an organizational mindset change so that we can develop digital dexterity. So finally, as what we've tried to do is create in India, make in India, and make it for the world. It resonates with the Ashok Leyland vision to be a global top 10 commercial vehicle player. And we've created a modular truck platform a global light commercial vehicle platform, and a commonized bus platform so that we can take advantage of scale. With the government, and this is going to be a subsequent question, I hope, the ease of doing business, the cost of doing business, two major pillars for companies to invest in India, and we must take that opportunity. Thank you. Back to you, Sridhar.
Thanks, Vipin. Very, very well said in terms of bringing the entire thing about not make, but create in India. And that I think is going to be the key going forward. Prashant, your views on the same?
Yeah. First of all, extremely grateful to Economic Times to be part of this esteemed panel. And if you talk about COVID, I think the situation forced many leaders to think a lot harder about what's a P&L issue and what's a balance sheet issue. How do you solve the short term and the long term? And of course, the choices were contextual. And the other most important, as Mr. Sondhi mentioned, the leadership in a remote context, communications with employees. How do we inspire our people in a remote context? I think bar on leadership really got higher. It got really accentuated. The outbreak of COVID-19 has had an impact across all industry to varying degrees. In manufacturing and automotive sectors, companies had to adapt very quickly to this challenge. I think over the time, the automotive sector has already learned to manage within the tight window times to create a strong sort of logistic supply chain. I think it is fast evolving, lean and efficient model that has seen continuous improvement for decades, covering various stakeholders, is also helping the industry. Over and above the digital integration and the industry 4.0 practices, and including we had to switch over to something called a virtual war room. Be it be a virtual audit, be it be a virtual reporting, be it be a virtual sort of a real-time monitoring, big data analysis. Really, all this really helped us in defining sort of innovative processes, solutions, and helped us to also improve the efficiency and the quality of the overall value chain. This has also ensured the processes are optimized, flexible, and highly adaptable to these changes. However, we required even more agility to handle this unprecedented challenges like this in the beginning of few months. To stay on top of this crisis, we at Continental tried ensuring as much normalcy as possible about customer commitments without putting our people at risk. While we were battling with, unfortunately, we have one more crisis, which is an offshoot of COVID. The crisis has really highlighted the need for adjustments in the capacity, sourcing patterns between automakers, tier ones, and also the suppliers. The semiconductor shortage crisis has really hit the industry at a time when the sector started to experience a moderate, I would say, recovery in production levels post this last year's impact. The ramp up in demand for chips from the automotive industry started with supply lines were already stretched. Till 70s, 80s, automotive used to be a mechanical box. Then we started adding sort of electronics to that. With the electronics came in software. So that's why you see most of the modern cars having a lot of dependency on these chips. I think this situation will definitely raise greater awareness among the OEs, tier ones, and also the semiconductor manufacturers to reevaluate the long-term mix of sourcing, especially at the dependency on the foundries, for making silicon wafers. So in summary, if I have to say, we had three approaches. The first is survival. That was the most important, cutting costs, speeding up processes, streamlining our structure, enhancing quality. This was the only way to remain competitive. What I say, we did everything possible to ensure taking the fat out without weakening the muscles. Second is we looked at our portfolio and we classified that as a growth and value. Creating value with growth means creating more value with new technologies in the medium and the long term. And creating value with value generating profit with tried and tested technologies in the long term. Both approaches were equally important. And the third is our strategy is therefore to boldly seize the new opportunities. So this is how I would summarize, Sridhar.
Thanks, Prashant. Sanjeev?
Thank you, Sridhar, and thanks, ET, for this invite. And my learned colleagues, Vipin and Prashant, have explained, what kind of response a responsible organization gives during the COVID crisis. So I believe I don't have much to add on top of it, but only thing that this was a health crisis. And right from my headquarters in Zurich, in Switzerland, and from our headquarters here to all the employees, the message was very clear. The health is a priority. Business is not during this period of time. And that was very clearly stated, not only for our employees, and we also took calls with their families, and very frequent calls with the families to let them know how we need to act and behave, because what we found, especially during the peak time of the infection rate, which was going around the country, that it was the behavior at the individual level or a family level which was causing the infection multiplier. So we took some steps there, and we could control, but without, we could not prevent some damage. Now, with respect to, while you take care of employees, you also know how much pain is out there in the society. So whatever within our capacity we could do to alleviate the, the social kind of a pain within the area of our influence, I think we continue to participate there as well. We wish we could do more, but we did whatever we could do within our capacity. Now, when it comes to the business and the manufacturing, well, I think these are the periods which come once in 100 years, right? So within 100 years, so what is there for what is there if your plant is not working for 2 weeks or 4 weeks? Of course, it creates a pain, but large companies or the companies which pride themselves to be managed well, they should be able to take that on their chin while protecting their employees, their families, our subcontractors, and everybody, because that becomes the priority. So we did have the impact in wave one, but then the pullback was very strong in Q3, Q4 last year. That is the second and third quarter of calendar year. Same this year, I would say the first quarter was pretty strong before the pandemic, again, wave two struck. We did have a loss of manufacturing, and we had to shut down our plants for a few weeks. And now they're ramping back, and government allows them to be run with a 50% capacity at this point of time. But we are able to meet the demand in the market, as well as we are more concerned about the supply chains at this point of time. Just like Prashant and Vipin mentioned, there are certain components which have which are high in demand, not only in chips, but also certain types of plastic components. So yes, I think as a global supply chain, as well as our local supply chain, I think we are able to kind of we are trying to balance it. I won't say that we have balanced it, and while we deal with this, also the commodity prices. We are an industrial engineering company, so we manufacture a lot of goods wherein a lot of sheet metal or steel as well as copper gets used. So naturally, that also has an impact on the input cost while you're dealing with the uncertainties in the demand side, as well as on the certainty of how the markets are going to operate. So as an overall perspective, when we look at it from a top view, ABB India, we have about 18 product lines, which are very distinct proposition in the market. And they kind of operate in about 19 distinct market segments, which are not correlated with each other. Automotive is one. So many segments got impacted. Some got impacted more severely than the others. Automotive was one. But then, given the mix of the products, as well as given the mix of the market segments, we didn't really feel that big a brunt, because our diversity in the portfolio, as well as our ability to supply to that demand, was quite okay. So we have a portfolio wherein we have 70% products and about 30% in projects and services. So I would say projects and services got more impacted, because the products are the ones which find their way into market much more easily, because they are boxed and then they are it's only the logistics side of it. But services, because the people can't move, as well as projects, wherein a lot of projects got stalled, and the investments are also not very heavy on the core sector. So that's an area which is still need to be picked up. So now I think worst is behind us. As we look forward, we do feel that the market in certain segments is pretty strong for us, especially in the energy efficiency, wherein the people are improving the cost in terms of reducing the, so that portfolio is working well. Robotics and automation is a quite strong for us in multiple market segments. It used to be pretty strong in automotive, but we find in FMCG and other segments also there's an uptake of robotics. So that's a new trend in the country, wherein the robotics is finding a very wide acceptance and base in the country's manufacturing. So that tells something about how the leaders of manufacturing in the country are looking into increasing the productivity. And also when it comes to electrification side, there again there's a good pull. So overall, I think we have to take a lot of stuff, lot on our chin, but going forward, I think the demand is visible for us. Back to you, Shilda.
Excellent. I think that what you're saying is that we are seeing that this Make in India is pretty strong as a concept. It's probably only going to improve. It just, we have to probably ride through these challenges that we're seeing currently.
Make in India, I believe we are manufacturing in this country for the last 70 years, being a multinational corporation, but all product lines are localized. We don't see that kind of an impediment. It's only how big the demand is out in the marketplace. I think that's one aspect, and how much we can leverage the manufacturing base here for the other markets. So I think those are the two equations we play with.
Perfect. Ravi, your views?
Yeah, thank you to ET to invite me, and it's an honor and privilege to be part of this esteemed panel. I think most of the panelists have covered the key things that all of us did as companies. I think clearly the first priority, the topmost priority, has been the health of everyone who's with us. Whether it is our employees, we call our employees our families, and everybody who's associated with all of us in every respect. Our mechanics, our distributors, our suppliers. So everybody is a family, where I would say this is like a world war, where the crisis has emerged due to obvious reasons. We have seen two waves of this now in this year, and obviously it's not over. We are all it's a day-to-day, real lifetime crisis management. I think all of us are going through as leaders, as companies. I think what we have learned is at the peak of the crisis, which happened last year, and again now we are seeing the second wave. Clearly, the most of the seniors have covered here in the panel what happened. We also formed task forces. I think in the lubricant industry, Gulf is amongst the top 3 private players, a strong brand, strong network, strong partners, B2C, B2B business. How do we get the rhythm of supply chain back, keeping safety paramount? I think that was clearly, and you heard everybody talk about it, that this was key. So rhythm of supply chain helped us. What we did differently, I guess, and what I would say the industry did, is we did demand sensing. Lubricants is a semi-essential product. Like most of the engines that run require lubricant in any form. And of course, the new vehicles require, the current vehicles require, which are running. So as we saw the demand, last year, when you remember, agriculture picked up a lot. There was huge agriculture, the amount of agriculture that went in. So our customers who are in agriculture, that was the first demand sensing we did. Then we had the green, orange, and red zones. So we actually had a demand sensing plan which was linked to that. And we were able to look at our depots. Of course, our esteemed customers, our direct customers, many of you here on this panel also, and many of these, we had to make sure that the commitments were met. We actually had demand sensing on daily basis, SKU wise, because you had to sense. But again, safety and other things were paramount. We were working from home, except the warehousing and the plant people who had to go. And, obviously it was a big risk which they have taken. And, they are the COVID warriors for us. And of course, the rest of the country has also been fighting this world war together. So I would just like to highlight a few of these things. I think most of it has been covered up. Agility and flexibility was the name of the game. I think looking at supply chains, we also get some of our additives from the global supply chains. And really, we had to be very speedy in terms of responding to this. And I think whichever of the players did better in our industry, we have actually seen that the replacement demand came back in Q2, Q3 financial year for all of us. And it was very good. Again, now we are going through the second wave. I think the lessons we have learned will help us. And certainly it's not over as yet. And it's given us more agility and flexibility to respond. And I will probably digitization will come later, but that was a key aspect to how to connect and get things done. So that's all I wanted to share at this stage.
Thanks so much, Ravi. So let me move on. I think that broadly we're saying that we've all had challenges, but we've overcome them. Things are looking promising while we are having these smaller challenges right now because of the second wave and so on and so forth. But manufacturing is strong in India and will continue to have that strong growth as well. So, and therefore we've had, and let me move on. So in the last year, we've seen the government announce the PLI scheme, right, for a number of sectors. Therefore there's been a lot of action around, say, pharma, electronics, telecom, food processing, and now we're seeing some action in auto as well, right? So very quickly wanted to get the waves, right? So how is this PLI going to support Make in India? Does it have that promise, and what kind of opportunities are you seeing to support the growth of manufacturing in India? So let me take some very quick views. Prashant, your views on this?
Yeah, I think FDA is crucial to Make in India, and significant part on being a significant part of global supply chain. I think to help India manufacture for the world than just for the country, this was very, very essential and important, I would say. It will keep help make India products competitive, enhancing exports and also growth within the country. I think this is a great initiative, and it will help to drive localization by raising India's bar as a global manufacturing hub. I think as per Niti Aayog, they said they will be spending about $50+ billion, of which 57,000 crores or about $8 billion is earmarked for automotive, which is a very good news. In the current pandemic timeline, I think multinational firms have realized the issues of concentrating their supply chains in few geographies. Yeah. So India is pitching itself to be a part of this global chain by attracting investments in this PLI sector, I would say at the right moment. Having said this, despite being ours being the maybe fifth biggest auto ecosystem, India is still a marginal player in the global supply chain. Is that going to change? That's the question I think we need to ask ourselves. Second is, incentives alone may not be able to convince firms to shift to India and create a separate ecosystem unless there's a local market demand also is generated to sufficient levels. These are the two things I think will be important for the success of Make in India and also making India as a global supply chain.
Perfect. Thanks, Prashant. Vipin, your views?
I think just to add to what Prashant has said, the PLI scheme is an extremely important scheme, but during this process of the PLI scheme, let's say for the next 5 years, we must, both government and industry must do what is necessary for ease of doing business and cost of doing business to make ourselves competitive. Incentives can only take us that far, but no further. So we've got to be genuinely competitive to ensure that manufacturing moves here, which it will. Now, if you look at the key pillars of the PLI scheme, number one, it's about driving scale. It's extremely important we have scale, because with scale comes efficiencies that drive down cost. The second is import substitution and enhancing exports. So Prashant mentioned, and I completely agree, whatever we do, we must do it for the world, but we've got to have a strong domestic base. So that's the second objective. And the third, probably the most important objective, is generation of employment. We've got to move people in agriculture into value-added manufacturing. No industrialized economy has jumped from agriculture to services directly. So manufacturing is extremely important. The opportunities that can support growth with the PLI scheme is the adoption of Industry 4.0, which was an earlier conversation, I think in an earlier panel. Data analytics to drive productivity. Importantly, training, development, and upskilling of the workforce, not only to remain at the cutting edge of technology, but at the incoming aspects, the first generation agricultural workers coming into the manufacturing sector. The third is no company will work in isolation. We will work in an ecosystem. Look at the automotive sector. It will work in an ecosystem of battery charging, of a variety of companies coming together. So strategic alliances and acquisitions. And then, as Prashant said, we become a contract manufacturer for global OEMs at the component manufacturer level to enhance our local technology and enhance contribution to GDP. All of this then raising the level of technology and coming back again to create in India. We must develop intellectual property in our country. This can be an overarching ambition of the PLI scheme. Thank you. Back to you, Sridhar.
Thanks, Vipin. And you put out 2 or 3 very, very key points. And let me start with one of them and ask a question quickly to Amit, and that's on the ease of doing business. Amit, welcome to the discussion. In terms of the ease of doing business, so while there are a number of schemes that are on in terms of incentives, are we doing enough in terms of ease of doing business, or can there be more that can be done to promote manufacturing in India?
Sridhar, firstly, thank you for inviting me to the panel, and it's good to be here amongst all the panelists, esteemed panelists. And I think from an ease of doing business perspective, there have been huge improvements, and we've seen the ranking of India going up. But I think there could be a lot more that can be done now, especially now because there are a lot of global manufacturers looking to manufacture elsewhere and looking at proper manufacturing locations. And some of the, of course, suggested things, and we talked a lot about Make in India, is of course to improve the perception of India. So one is improving the ease of business in India and then improving that perception globally. That has to be done on a war footing because the investments are now, a lot of investments are going to Vietnam and other places as well, some coming to India. So Invest India is doing a good job, but more needs to be done. Another thing which Mr. Sondhi talked about is to take manufacturing into a different level in the scale, but also the quality standards need to be world-class. One is to have world-class quality standards of manufacturing, and the other is to make the perception of Make in India or the perception of manufacturing world-class products to be much, much better. But in terms of overall, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly well.
Okay, then there are a lot of other measures in simplification of labor laws that are still to be done, skill development and other training programs that need to be done in India, which is the government has taken that up. Removing the bureaucratic barriers that are still there and expanding the business. I think the single window clearance is very good, but then there are again norms, standardization norms that have to take place. Although it's single window facilitator, but again to expand and set up factories, you have to go to various different places. Standardization norms like FSI norms or setback or slum clearance norms or fire norms, those clearances again take a lot of time. These are the improvements that every multinational would actually look at today. Infrastructure, of course, a lot's been talked about. We're improving a lot in infrastructure. There's a lot of money that's going into rail, road, and air as well. But the warehousing and logistics has to really improve much more. And we actually see the importance now during COVID of the warehousing and logistics. One big thing that we still have to work on is the taxation and unnecessary harassment, which is still there. Digitalization has helped a lot. So that's something that the government has done a lot. Digital ways of working. But again, the taxation is still creating a problem. And I think if we can solve that, that will be solve it and also explain to the MNCs and people who are willing to invest in India, because a lot has been talked about it, that we have improved these taxation laws and it's more transparent than ever before. I think there is an effort to do it, but more needs to be done. And e-governance and digitalization will help a lot there. Other thing, of course, loans at lower interest to the MSCs that are trying to set up businesses in and around the big factories. The larger companies have a role to play there, but so is the government. And of course, making all our products export worthy as well. So these are some of the things, Sridhar, that I think can be done for improving ease of doing business even further. Like I said, lots been done, but a lot more is to be done, and improving that perception of ease of doing business.
No, perfect. Thanks, Sanjeev. Your views, on this.
Thank you, Kamath. I think good comments, Amit. So I concur with Amit. I think we are enjoying certain good measures taken by the authorities and by the policy makers, that a lot has improved in last many years. But if we really look into the relative scale to rest of the world, who are our competitors, or somewhere we need to be competitive against the world standards, I think a lot more needs to be done with respect to ease of doing business as well as cost of doing business in the country. So if we look into any business, so when you look at the business, what you do is you look into the whole value chain and you say, what is the price point I can realize from the market? And then I have to adjust my elements which are influenced by them, which helps ease the manufacturability or the attractiveness of the location for manufacturability, and keep on reducing those impediments. I think it kind of furthers the objective. My belief is, and actually I have been participating in some of those panels or some kind of discussions, I think the policymakers have all the data they need. They have all the models they have from good consulting companies like Deloitte and many others, what needs to be done. I think it's not that there's a lack of knowledge, but I think it is just matter of amount of speed within the structure that we have, we can put in, and how quickly we can get through that through the system and put it out in the market. So as Vipin said, that we have to, if we have to be best in class manufacturing company or country, we need to attract best of technology first, because all the technologies are not available in India. All the know-how is not available in India, though we have very talented people, but we have not developed all those technologies which have been developed across the globe. So that means you need to create first the demand for those technologies by raising the standards of acceptance of technology in our public space. So that attracts the technology, that attracts the manufacturing, and India has a fairly sizable demand to meet those kind of volumes. But once you raise those standards, the manufacturing comes, and alongside manufacturing, the whole supply chain gets set up. Like, for example, let me give you an example about solar energy or electric vehicle charging. All these areas use power electronics, but there is no kind of a supply chain in the country for power electronics for that matter, though the volumes are very good. So if we are very conscious that we want to expand in these areas, it's important to incentivize those key components of the supply chain to be set up. Then it's much easier to put up the high scale manufacturing locations. I think we still can be very competitive on the cost of improvising the technology that we bring into the country. But I believe the policymakers know about it, but it's just a matter of time. I think they will take to process it. It's just like in certain cities, we see that the infrastructure is not as good as it should be, but then it doesn't get done, day after tomorrow, just because it's so visible. So I believe we will go through our journey over a period of time, but we should keep on taking what is given to us. We are manufacturing in this country for last 70 years. Quite frankly, I will not say that we don't feel ease of doing business here, because really now we are well established and we know how things work and how the processes work. So that part is settled. But still, we believe the cost of doing business in the country is still that can be looked at. Yeah.
Very important points. The cost of doing business is something that probably we need to also keep in mind as we start thinking about growing manufacturing in the country. In the interest of time, let me quickly, I think we have just about 10 minutes. So, and because Vipin spoke about digital, let me just get a few quick views around digital, and smart manufacturing, right? And that's one of the things that, is an important enabler, if you will, in achieving some of the things that you all spoke about in terms of better quality, higher productivity, lower cost, and becoming more competitive. So, I mean, how do you see this adoption of digital or smart manufacturing now in the country, in the organizations that you're working with, or in the sector that you're working with? And is there something more that can be done to accelerate this going forward? So let me just get some, and Sanjeev, since you're on, very quickly, a couple of points around this.
So you see, smart manufacturing or any new technique that you adopt, whether digital or whatever we have done in the last century, it's always to gain more productivity. That's the aim. You make an investment so that you are more productive. So smart technologies and digital technologies offer that opportunity for the companies and the manufacturing setups which are coming from past. So I would say in our country, if I just give you a measure, if in Southeast Asian or Asian countries, if there are 100 robots per 10,000 workers, in India we have 4. So that means there's a huge gap wherein adoption of kind of a smart technologies need to take place. But I must say at the same time that the growth rates in last 2 years really have expanded. Earlier, automotive sector used to be a leader in this area, but we are seeing it expanding across the sectors like in electronics, FMCGs, etc. But robotics is, of course, is only one element. So a smart manufacturing is basically combination of number of elements, smart elements coming together. Like, for example, if you are manufacturing, it's possible to convert your shop floor, which we have done in our own shop floor here in Bangalore, where we manufacture switchgear. We are using now 30% less space, but we are producing 30% more within that space by just automating it and putting robotics, and also making data-based manufacturing and checks and balancing. So like say earlier, a person will physically enter the data about his completion, but now what you do is you make these cells in such a way that even a low-skilled person can participate because he is being guided how to assemble. But then the testing is done by an automated machine before it is passed on to the next assembly level. And this way, when you set it up, the productivity and also the flexibility that you require to change the production. Yeah, also the scalability. Sometimes when you have a large orders, you are able to scale it up by 1, 2, or 3 shifts, or the adaptability that you require, that sometimes customer requires certain customization. All those things come in. So anybody, whether you are a small scale manufacturer, medium scale, or large scale manufacturer, for large scale manufacturer, the scaling effect comes because that's where the smart manufacturing gives. In the medium and the small scale side, the adaptability and ability to serve the customers much more effectively, that is something which can be done. It all depends upon the kind of a business model that you have. And the side effect of it is when you organize the smart manufacturing, it starts giving you a lot of data. And if you run it for 10 months, 12 months, you have enough data available. And if you do good analysis on it, it starts telling you where the bottlenecks in your production are. And then if the data becomes even more rich, you can even go for machine learning exercise and see where those, kind of bottlenecks, or where the opportunity of improving the throughput or the reducing the cost or adapting the product is available. So it is the right way. And I'm afraid that those companies which will adapt these technologies, and those I'm seeing are adapting, they're really doing very well. And those who will not, I think they'll be left behind. So that would be my take, Kamath, on smart manufacturing.
Thanks. Ravi, your view, a slightly different industry, consumer, your view on this?
Yeah, Sridhar. So I think, as we have always said, the new way forward is, one of them is digitization. Every sphere of what we do as consumers, as whether it's in manufacturing or we talk of sales or anything, That's the way forward. In any sphere, it's all about the government sector. Also, you see government institutions now adopting digitization and everything. Now, the faster we do this is we're going to do better. So clearly, this is we are got about 55% of our sale as a consumer brand in the B2C segment. We talk about brand building investments. I would say digitization is the new A&P investment in our businesses. You have to allocate part of it into this. The manufacturing part, when I was talking to my team, clearly came through that in manufacturing, whether it is manufacturing on the line or quality checks, if you want to be world class, you have to digitize there. You will have to have your process engineers skilled to read the data, to be available to data. I think Amit mentioned, world class, making the product quality known. Now, if we are, just to give an example, we make a product called AdBlue. Now we have a built-in quality system on the line when we will make this in our plant in Chennai. So this will ensure that every quality check is done on the line. Now we also have a system where if our complaint is there on the lubricant, somebody can take a photograph and it can be sent back to our concerned people in the plant straight off. So they have got to get used to this. It's called Gulf Care, the app. So some of these things we have to digitize. I think it's the best way to do it. And just to give you an example, we were talking earlier about India being a source. This year, we have exported to 28 countries. We were at 15 countries earlier. People are looking at India as a regional hub. Only when we digitize, we get all these things going, is that we'll be recognized. We normally get 2 or 3 global or regional RFQs. Last year, we got 7. So just to tell you, people are looking at India. We need to have a sector-wise approach to take on the sectors which can go on a fast track. So I'd just like to cover both the points, either earlier one and this one. Thank you.
No, perfect. So let me just quickly wrap this up and ask a very pertinent question, which was the theme of this discussions, and very quick reactions. Amit, do we think 2021 is going to be the game changer for manufacturing in India? Just a very quick response.
Yeah, from a technology perspective, yes, definitely, because like Ravi also mentioned, digitalization is brought forward in India. So it'll be a game changer from smart manufacturing and customer end. But from a market perspective and how the market picks up, a little bit of a question mark. Depends a lot on how the wave 2 goes down and wave 3 doesn't happen. And that's where the entire population of India needs to work together and ensure that there is social distancing and vaccination that happens.
Prashant, your very quick response to 2021, the game changer?
Sure. I think digitalization and newer technologies adoption can transform the complete value chain, and I'm very confident. Smart manufacturing, I think, is no more a luxury, but critical for the growth of the sector. Yeah, in manufacturing, technological advancement can help boost efficiency, productivity, cost, and even value to the customers. So, we've always heard cash is the king, but if you ask me in today's context, data is becoming a king. So, Industry 4.0, what is it all about? It's gaining the visibility of the material flow in the system. So if you look at currently in all our industries, we have a lot of KPIs, and what we follow, the track KPIs is a past. Yeah, we try to analyze the past data and try to take action for how not to repeat those mistakes or control them. Whereas in the Industry 4.0, it gives a visibility on a real-time basis, which allows you to correct those even before that the event happens. Yeah, so that's the advantage of data. So having said that, I think still there is a little bit of when you talk about a lot of companies are reluctant to move towards this transformation. I think it's due to lack of clarity on the ROI. While certainly ROI is a key factor for measuring the success over a course and for paving way for the determination of future business decisions. I think at such times companies must think of long-term ROI. For instance, how this transformation will help the operational output, improve efficiency, contribute to sustainable manufacturing. I think so. These are some of the points from my side, Sridhar.
Thanks so much, Vipin. Very last word. Is 2021 going to be the game changer for manufacturing in India?
Certainly, Sridhar, and especially from a mindset standpoint. I think what has happened is, number one, of course, health is the priority. but we've also understand, and we've spoken about digital, but the question is we'll have to unlearn, relearn, reskill and upskill, but faster than ever before. Next is collaboration and co-creation. As I mentioned, no individual company can exist by itself. And finally, I think Prashant just mentioned it, we've got to ensure that whatever we do in manufacturing is sustainable across the entire value chain. And that's not about planting more trees. It's about in our production, in our product, in our processes, all of it. And we've got to adapt future technology and remain ahead of the curve. All of this has been fast forwarded because of the situation that has been created in the last 15 months. So a straight answer, yes, we do see it as a big change in 2021.
Thank you so much. I think thank you to all the panel members for very, very insightful views on this topic. Just to quickly close my 3 takeaways from this. One, I think that while COVID-19 brought in a lot of challenges, it has brought in a lot of learning and opportunities which can support the Make in India program and help us to get into that next league. Second, I think that, while there are a number of areas that the government is working on and there can be more that can be done, we all have to probably look at how we can support these programs, make the best out of whether it's a PLI, and as the government works on further improving the ease of doing business in India, how can we look at the cost of doing business in India and see if that can be improved as well. And finally, the third takeaway for me was digital and smart manufacturing. And that's something that can be the real game changer if we all adopt it and adopt it faster than ever before. And very closely associated with it is the upskilling that may be required, the reskilling that may be required of our people to make it happen. I think that it's been a very insightful discussion. I hand you back to Evan.
Thanks so much, Sridhar, for summarizing the key points of this inaugural panel on manufacturing, the game changer for India 2021. You're absolutely right. There was some great insights shared by all the stalwarts from the industry and who are represented on this panel. I would like to personally thank, on behalf of the Economic Times, Vipin Sondhi, Ravi Chawla, Prashant Doreswamy, Sanjeev Sharma, and Amit Gosen for all the insights shared. I'm sure we are leaving with some important takeaways, and we wish you and your respective organizations the very best for 2021 and even going forward. And thank you, Sridhar, for doing a fantastic job of moderating this panel.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, during the break between sessions, do visit the networking lounge, which is a button on the bottom of your screen where you can create a group and video chat with like-minded people. Visit our partner booths by simply clicking on the Experience Zone button at the bottom of your screen. Chat, speak, or video call any of them, and do come back to the live sessions again by clicking on the Track 1 button at the bottom of your screen. You can also take a break during the sessions by clicking on the Take a Break tab. If you click on the tab, you can visit the social wall where you can post your tweets and experiences using the hashtag #ETSmartManufacturing. The photo booth where you can click a selfie, Car Rush, a game that is specially designed for you, and a signature wall where you can post positive comments about the speakers, panels, content of the summit, etc. Do stay tuned in. We will be back on the other side in a few moments from now with the fireside chat.